Okay. Sorry about that. It was just a little technical error there. So I was just saying, thank you all for joining. It's great to be here today. So basically, what I was saying before when the mic was off was that I was just curious what everybody's skill level is at Kubernetes. One being that this is your first time ever hearing of it, or 5, you're an expert, you should be giving the presentation. So, and this is also meant to be interactive as well. So please add your question in the Zoom chat. We're gonna stop a few times throughout the presentation just to answer those questions. So, and I'm actually seeing everybody's, and it's great to see everybody's about a 1 or a 2. This is gonna be a pretty high level explanation of it. But maybe towards the end, if you have questions, we can get a little bit more into it. So anyway, with no further ado, I want to introduce Leonard. He's a solutions architect here at Stratox, and he's going to be telling us a little bit more about Kubernetes. So Jan, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Thank you. As you mentioned, I'm a lead solutions architect at Stratox. I've been a software architect for over 15 years, and I worked in a large number of industries, including the financial industry, telecommunications sector, and government as well. So I have seen a lot of different contexts and use cases in companies, large or small. As importantly, I have seen how architecture has evolved over time as a result of technological changes.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks, Jan. So let's jump into the subject, how to Kubernetes without Kubernetes. So let's start with talking about Kubernetes. Why are an increasing number of businesses using Kubernetes?
Well, because it's cool. Oh, just kidding. That's definitely a good question. And yes, we should answer that question first. According to the latest survey from the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, more than 90% of respondents report using or evaluating Kubernetes. That certainly is a lot of interest. To answer this question, you need to understand what Kubernetes is.
So could you explain what Kubernetes is about? What is it?
The official definition is that it's an open source container orchestration tool. I like to think about it as a next generation environment for application runtime.
All right.
So let's imagine in the early generation, software has been delivered with specific versions for each operating system. And more recently, virtual machines improved the landscape. Virtual machines carried with them their operating system and provided a layer of abstraction over the runtime environment. In the next generation is using containers to further abstract more efficiently over the operating system. As you can see, containers eliminate the need for carrying the full operating system in the container. Containerization is a key trend. Containers are lighter, faster, and easier to operate than virtual machines. For instance, Docker containers can be created in seconds versus minutes for virtual machines. Containerized applications such as Sonar and others can be found and installed easily within minutes, and they are also wonderful for auto-scale deployments. In summary, containers make development and deployment more efficient, in particular, more cost efficient.
Okay. So now we understand a bit about Dockerization. I guess that might have to be a subject that we get into another day, a little bit deeper. But how does Kubernetes fit into the picture?
That's a good question. As companies advance in their digital transformation, increase their agility and deliver software modules through containerized microservices, the need for an automated solution increases. If you have a typical production of an average company, it requires multiple containers, multiple hosts, network configurations, load balancers, applications, and so on. All of that has to be configured and deployed. And to do it quickly, you have to automate this process. This is exactly the point where Kubernetes as an orchestrator of Docker containers comes in. From the software delivery point of view, container orchestration tools such as Kubernetes support the delivery of software that is highly available, scalable, and resilient, which means it could recover from the failure much faster than usually. From operational perspective, automated tools like Kubernetes save operation costs, especially for those companies who operate dozens of containers. There's another survey last year done by Pure Storage, and they estimated that 55%, the proportion of IT professionals that expect Kubernetes to reduce their annual costs by 20% or more.
Wow, you can definitely see why Kubernetes is so awesome. But is there any situations that you would recommend avoiding using Kubernetes?
Yeah, of course there are. Kubernetes could help you in many areas, but it would be a mistake to see it as a completely universal solution for every case.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean? Kubernetes is complex. Everyone knows that, and it really is, which of course relates to its power and flexibility. But that also means that you will need specialists to operate it. Growing those specialists from the existing teams can be difficult and time-consuming, while recruiting those specialists can be expensive, when not downright impossible, depending on the job market in which you operate.
Sure.
And then Kubernetes doesn't come alone. Often you use it in conjunction with Helm, which is a package manager, and other tools. All this ecosystem adds value and simplifies various aspects of using Kubernetes, but they each come with their learning curve and idiosyncrasy, which reinforces the point that you need a team of specialists to handle it. You cannot expect the average developer to take responsibility of any of it. If you have an effective infrastructure production team, taken care of a monolithic application or a relatively simple application portfolio, and you are satisfied with the operating status quo, which means performance, outages, incident management, and so on, then adoption of Kubernetes would be an overkill for you.
Okay. So before we continue, let's see for a second if we have some questions from the audience. And I apologize if anybody has to wait in the waiting room for a minute. We actually hit capacity, so I'm glad we have so much interest in the event. So do we have any questions or anything? Let's see. So let's see. Okay. So Kubernetes is automated. You don't have control over it. Or how does it relate to Docker, I guess?
Yeah, we will talk about it right now. How the Kubernetes and Docker are related. So maybe we can leave this question.
Okay, sure. We'll save any questions for the end when we have a little bit more time to go through them. So, all right, complexity. You said that Kubernetes is very powerful, but also very complex, to the point that it requires dedicated specialists, and also to the point that it doesn't fit every use case out there. Could we spend some time explaining what Kubernetes is really solving?
Yeah. Let's have a look, just very briefly,
sure.
How Kubernetes is working. As was the question, we have a container running some libraries and applications, and how Kubernetes is coming into game. Kubernetes is operating with pods.
Mhm.
Pod is a like minimum set with which the Kubernetes operates, and pod consists of one or more containers. So containers are stored in pods, and they are managed by the Kubernetes. Yeah, and these pods are operating within the node. They are living, running within the node. You can have more pods running on one node, and such node is called a worker node because it's where the application is really living when your application portfolio is running. Okay, so usually let's expect we have one or more nodes. You need to operate your application portfolio, your containers, and these worker nodes has to be managed somehow, and they are managed by Kubernetes by special components which are living in the master node. Sometimes it's called a control plane component, and this master node is responsible and is managing everything what is happening within the worker nodes. Let's have a look a bit closer how the master node is working. One of the most important components within the master node is a scheduler. Scheduler is a component responsible for creation, move, or termination of the pods within the worker nodes. So scheduler manages if any pod will be created, terminated, moved from one worker node to the other. Yeah. Another very important component is a controller manager. And this controller manager is watching the current status of the Kubernetes cluster and is managing changes towards the desired state, which means controller is looking over the status of the Kubernetes cluster and is providing requests to scheduler to run, terminate pods as necessary. And everything this would not be possible without another component, which is called API server. API server is a component which manages any communication among internal components within the Kubernetes cluster, but also between external components and the internal stuff inside the cluster as well. And to mention the last component which is missing from the most important ones, like core components of Kubernetes, is the etcd. Strange name for a component, but in fact it's basically a storage for Kubernetes. In fact, it's a key value database which is used by any of the Kubernetes components to persist any kind of information necessary to store.
Okay, so it doesn't look so complex. How does it play together, and what could we get out of it?
Yeah, I have just outlined a very high-level overview of the Kubernetes, not to confuse with the details, and the functional view will be a bit worse. But let's have a look at it. Primary function, as I already said, is to run containers within the pods, which means automatic deployment of pods into the worker nodes based on consumption of CPUs and RAM. So you can configure your Kubernetes cluster for specific usage of resources by an application or by a pod. and Kubernetes will manage everything to provide these resources to the pod. But also Kubernetes can do what is called auto-scaling. Auto-scaling means that if you will face unusual increase of users or requests coming to your application, Kubernetes cluster can manage and scale your services to manage that load. Of course, it depends on the overall set of resources which are available and priorities and things like that. But basically, it's possible. And not to forget about the self-healing capability, which means that if anything goes wrong with a container, with a pod, Kubernetes will manage, restart, replace, killing of not responding containers, including providing the information to consumers, whether the service is overall available or not. So those were the functionalities related with pods and containers and their management itself. Of course, they have to communicate somehow. Pods among them or with some external components, applications, users. So the networking, which also means the full service discovery and routing to manage the communication, distribution of the traffic, because usually the application is running on several pods in several instances to manage the whole load. So Kubernetes will manage the distribution of the load to balance it across the pods, which can respond to the requests. But that's not everything. There are more things which Kubernetes will manage. For example, automated rollouts and rollbacks. Let's say you have an application running already in your Kubernetes cluster, everything is fine, but one day you will come with a new version of the application because you need a new business feature, whatever, and you will come with a new version of the container, of the pod, and Kubernetes will manage the deployment of the new version of that container, which means deployment of the new container, removal of existing at a very controlled way, including adaptation of all resources and stuff around, which also means that if the new version is failing constantly to provide services, then Kubernetes will automatically roll back to the previously working version. So you can imagine there is a lot of complexity behind, a lot of things to be configured to run it properly according to the requirements or behavior of your application. And we don't have to forget about the storage, because today almost every application needs something to store and so on. And Kubernetes will manage automatic mounting of the storage system as well. And it doesn't matter, it could be a local storage, it could be public cloud provider, or there are other options you can utilize as well. And yeah, it's also important, it's always on the last place, but it doesn't mean that it's not so important, secret and configuration management. If you have a lot of applications running within the Kubernetes node, Kubernetes cluster, then of course you would like to exchange and to deliver and to manage sensitive information like passwords, tokens, SSH keys, and so on, to deploy them, update them into the pods in a controlled and secure way without exposing those secrets in stack configuration.
Okay. So now I can understand why everybody's talking about how complex Kubernetes is. And again, like I'm seeing there's a lot of questions in the chat too. We're happy to send this to you guys in a video later in case you want to review that section. But yeah.
Okay. Do we have any question?
Do you guys, are there any questions in the chat here? So how do you manage it? Local client or in the cloud?
I don't understand exactly the question. Yeah, it depends. Of course, you can run Kubernetes on-prem. You can run it in the cloud as today. So it depends. Kubernetes is running without any client attached. So of course, you need the client to change the configuration and stuff like that. But then it's running itself.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Let's see. Yeah, so I think that some of these questions are actually going to be covered later on in the presentation. So maybe Jan, go ahead. Is there any way out of this, or should I learn everything about Kubernetes to get its benefits?
Not at all. And I would say it's not even a good idea.
Okay.
This is already a known anti-pattern, unless you face some of the very specific cases, like you have some regulations which are not allowing you to go to public cloud, and even then you can use some of the solutions to not to play directly with the Kubernetes. We will see that a bit later. Or another case is if it's your primary business to provide infrastructure, then of course you have to deal with the Kubernetes and you have almost no way out. And the last option is if there is any real need of avoiding dependency on specific provider for whatever geopolitical reason, market competition, but I believe that those will be niche cases, case by case. But the main message is use Kubernetes directly only if you don't have other option.
Okay. Okay. So I think that's the main topic for today. So how do we use Kubernetes without Kubernetes?
Yeah, Kubernetes is bringing a lot of value, and there are options with which you can benefit from its power without paying the complexity price.
Right. So I guess mainly there's what you're saying is there's no way to eliminate the complexity, but maybe there's some way to save time at least.
Yeah, you hit the nail. One of the biggest issues today is to get the right people for your company. If you have them, then you would like to focus them on your business instead of wasting your time with something you just need to work, and that's not the core of your expertise.
Okay. Okay. So I like this approach. And what are the options anyway?
Well, generally, as everyone knows, Kubernetes is an extremely flexible and open platform, providing a certain level of services. And in fact, most of the companies doesn't need this level of flexibility and services. In fact, they need even other services built on top of Kubernetes. Let's say, like in your real life, you don't have to know how to change the oil or repair anything on your car. You just want to drive it.
Right.
There are quite a few platforms which provide different levels of abstractions over the Kubernetes, depending on the type of IT guys who will work with them.
Okay. Okay. So I expect you're talking about platforms like OpenShift, Tanzu, Heroku, and of course our CodeNOW.
Yeah, you are right. Each of the platforms is focused on their end users abstraction. but they all provide a user interface layer that makes it simpler to operate Kubernetes under the hood. So it depends on your context, which of those is the right choice for you. But the abstraction layer, which is often called a self-service portal, is really essential. Yeah, and there is a statement from the Container Journal which recognized the value of developer user-friendly self-service portals as really a must. Yeah, because it provides visibility, reliability. It provides multi-service to help express information about services for others. It provides they provide decoupling from a specific service mesh or cloud or even Kubernetes, and they can offer some kind of agnostic plug and play capability. So service owners don't need to know every nut and bolt of the system under the hood. They need to understand if deploys were successful, if code changes helped, and how their service performs in production environments. Empowering service owners with increased Kubernetes visibility enables a healthy conversation between end developers and DevOps leads.
Okay. So it's great that there are several choices available to mitigate the complexity of operating Kubernetes, but is there anything I can focus on to choose the right platform?
Yeah, sure. There are several guidelines you can use to choose the right solution for you. First and most important is choose the level of abstraction which suits you best. Depending on the needed flexibility and typical people you have available, this is the basic. Also, you have to mention and you have to take into consideration where you would like to operate your solution. Do you need to run it on-prem or on specific cloud, or you need to be run already for multi-cloud, for cloud bursting? Here you have to be careful about the vendor lock or especially cloud lock. Another dimension is to consider which level of performance and availability you have to achieve, together with observability. How critical is the quality of the operation for you? And of course, which managed services do you need, like databases, messaging, streaming, and so on. Those platforms varies a lot between those managed services. And of course, if you need to run any third-party solutions, you have to be careful as well and take this into consideration. Me personally, I like the approach of focusing on the value you want to deliver, not dealing with the standard stuff. I think you have to follow the keyword value stream delivery platform.
Okay, so you mean the value stream delivery platform category promoted by Gartner?
Yeah, exactly. Those platforms are adding on top of Kubernetes CI/CD pipelines to fully automate the build, validation, deployment of your applications. They are adding observability for smooth operation of the solution, which means monitoring, unified logging and tracing, and of course, also coverage of security aspects like authentication, authorization, data encryption, and so on.
Okay. So also, if anyone is interested in that report on value stream delivery platforms, we're going to go ahead and put the link in the chat where you can get that just on our website there. Anyway, it seems to be like automation of everything beyond development.
Yeah, exactly. Because the only thing at the end, what you cannot automate easily today are developers. That's why also our platform CodeNOW is fully focused on the best development experience and operates only with the terms each developer understands. Developer self-service and developer experience are the key. it's also stated in the latest report of Puppet's state of DevOps. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So what about other aspects that you've mentioned recently?
Yeah, and now our self-promotion starts, but we really believe that it's bringing real value. So just very briefly, CodeNOW is multi-cloud ready. You can operate your application on-prem or within AWS, Azure, and DigitalOcean. We are currently working on GCP right now, expecting availability within next few weeks. And with CodeNOW, there is no vendor lock threat because CodeNOW is made from the best choice of open source tools, including all managed services, covering most frequent databases and communication technologies. And also very important part, applications running within CodeNOW are getting full observability from the very first moment, very first moment as well. Our slogan is, you code, we build it, we run it.
Okay, great, excellent. And so maybe we can just take this opportunity right now. Jan is going to actually show us how easily it is to set up an application with CodeNOW. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and answer some questions, hopefully. We'll see if you can do both at the same time. So let's go ahead then.
Yeah, so here it is, the self-service portal of CodeNOW. It's just a trial version. Any one of you could try it. We will send the link to the chat as well for sure. It's free for 2 weeks. You can try whatever you want. And to provide you more insight that it was not only statement, but it's really true what we do. I will create a very simple Hello World application within really literally a couple of minutes. So first thing, I have to create an environment. Let's call it demo. And the environment is setting up very short. Yeah, and it's done. And now let's create an application. So here we have a list of applications, which is empty, of course. So let's create an application. What I need is a demo app, and the production environment will be demo. Okay, so let's call it demo app 2, confirm. And we cannot have an application without the component. So let's call it demo component 2 to stay consistent. And now I have to choose which development stack I want to use. I can choose from C#, Java, JavaScript, PHP, TypeScript, and we are adding more and more. So I will choose C#. I will choose the build tool and the framework .NET 6. And that's it, confirm. And the configuration, I will go with the basic one. And it's done. So I will go back to application detail. And now I would like to build my component. There is a scaffolder generated behind with a Hello World application. So I will just describe the version, and I want to immediately deploy after successful build to the demo environment. And now the magic begins. We can even see in the meantime the progress, what's happening on the background. I will keep it on the screen. And if we have any questions, we can respond them. This process will take just 1-2 minutes, and then we will see running application, hopefully. So are there any questions?
Okay, yeah. So we got one good question. What is the ETA on Python's support? I know
Yeah,
we've been talking.
that's quite a common question. That's why it's already on our roadmap, and we expect to have it until June at worst. We already planned that to our production team. So you can expect that until summer it will be available, and you can utilize it.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think we actually do have a roadmap somewhere. Maybe we can find that and drop the link into the chat there. So okay, any other questions?
Docker or Knative mode. Is the power of Kubernetes better realized with Docker or with Knative mode?
Well, that's a tough question.
Repeat it because they may not have heard.
Yeah.
So just in case you guys didn't hear that, so is the power of Kubernetes better realized with Docker or Knative mode? Is that native?
Well, it depends, and what you can be sure that if you will choose the proper tool to manage the abstraction over the Kubernetes, you don't have to deal with that. You don't have to solve this problem, because the vendors of these VSDP platforms are solving those issues for you. So maybe today it's better to run it as Knative. It could be a better, more efficient as a Docker 2 years ago, and you don't have to know about it, because these platforms will manage this complexity, these details instead of you. So you don't have to know more than Kubernetes is running behind.
Okay. So how are we doing there? Are we
Yeah, we have still some steps to be done, but we are on the track, and it will be.
Okay, so I just wanted to take this chance. Like, everybody, definitely go to our website, check out the Gartner report. Definitely try out CodeNOW. If you have any questions, you can email me, just martin.wagner@codenow.com. Let's see. And also the feature roadmap is there in the chat. So if you guys have any questions about that, definitely let me know. So yeah. So how do people decide whether to go for Kubernetes or not? What primary factors?
Yeah, it depends, of course, on your use cases. I already mentioned some cases when Kubernetes is not a good idea. Usually, if you need scaling of your application, if you don't have really a simple one package application, one container application, then you should consider Kubernetes for sure. Yeah, and even with these platforms built over the Kubernetes, you can utilize them very easily, even for a very simple application to run them. As you can see in the meantime, the build is completed, and we can see in the detail of our application, it should be already deployed. It's deployed. It's healthy. And what is important is that we have live monitoring running from the very first moment. You have metrics available, so you have observability how your solution is working. Of course, these are out-of-the-box dashboards. You can define your own if you like, but the observability is there without any doubt. There are also logs available for tracing, and yeah, you can even try to run the application, which is the Hello World REST service, and you can execute it very easily directly from the self-service portal. Yeah, but don't be worried if you have your component. There is a very short, very brief help how to configure your local environment, your favorite IDE to develop your applications. So you can still use whatever IDE, IDRJ, or Eclipse, or whatever you are using for the development of your applications. And CodeNOW will just grab your source codes from the GitLab and build, run the solution. And there is also very easy to check and to operate many list of managed services. So you can very easily get a new service. You can just simply choose whichever managed service you like, and then you can start using this managed service within your application. I will not go into more details, but you can see that it's really easy to have to work with the self-service portal from the developer perspective. You don't have to understand what Kubernetes is. Anything what is behind is very well hidden and working for you.
Okay, awesome. So I think that pretty much wraps it up for today. So honestly, like, just you guys check out CodeNOW if you want to learn how to run all these microservices like Kubernetes. You don't need to learn all of them yourself. Like, you can do them, you know, basically just with CodeNOW. It's free to try. But if you want to, you know, ask any questions or anything, you can also email me, martin.wagner@codenow.com. Again, in case you missed it, we'll put it in the chat. But either way, if any of you guys are in the Bay Area, we'll be there from April 11th. In case you're watching this, that's the following Monday for those of you live here on the event. And, you know, we'd be happy to meet up. But anyway, that wraps it up for today. And feel free to, you know, message me on LinkedIn or send me an email, and I hope to hear from you all again.
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jan. We appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for joining. And I guess, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.